I'm David Herring from the University of New Mexico. I want to talk about course level assessment today. I've completed a series of 3 projects that I want to tell you about in 2 different first-year courses, Civil Procedure and Constitutional Law, focusing on 2 units within those courses, Personal Jurisdiction on one hand and Commerce Power Doctrine on the other. I really wanted to put my teaching of doctrinal courses under the microscope, so that's the purpose. The first step in doing these projects was to form a research team because we needed expertise. And so I reached out to education researchers and people comfortable with empirical work. This is not actually them, but you get the idea. Because I have no background in empirical work, and I had some good researchers. Now, I did identify, the second step is to identify a focused student learning outcome, and I used Marge Schultz and Sheldon Zedek's work about the 26 characteristics of effective lawyers. I landed on legal reading and reasoning. That's what I do in my courses. And more specifically, looking at cross-case reasoning, a very focused skill. I developed a methodology of assessment with my team using pre- and post-testing to ascertain learning gains, and growth is the focus of my work, not competency. That's a separate project. I developed test instruments that are multiple choice. The students read a core case, they then extract a rule from that case that's provided to them, and they read hypotheticals. And the idea is to see if students can recognize the challenge posed by the hypothetical and to see if students can determine the best response to the hypothetical. And we had to establish validity as a first step in this. Are we measuring what we want to measure? And one piece we did, we actually had law faculty at the University of Pittsburgh, where I was at the time, take the tests and compare them to students. And I have a brave faculty. And they did that, and faculty outperformed first-year students, thank goodness. But there was no significant difference between them and third-year students. And that was interesting. That's kind of what we wanted, because we want the test to measure basic skills that we want to achieve early in legal education. The first results were of my own teaching using the very traditional Socratic method. And we found no significant learning gains in the personal jurisdiction unit through that teaching method. That kind of hurt, because I thought I was a good teacher, but it kind of hurt. Then we did this first paper that reported our results. It's interdisciplinary in nature, it's empirical, and as you see, co-authored. I think we're starting a scholarship of teaching was the goal. I did a second round of testing with the next year's course, and I used the traditional Socratic method supplemented with small writing exercises based on the multiple choice questions that were used, same format that are used in the tests. Asked students to explain why an answer is deemed correct, why others are deemed incorrect, and gave them feedback on that. And when we did that, we produced significant learning gains and produced this second paper. Again, co-authored, interdisciplinary, and empirical in nature. So supplementing the Socratic method seemed to be the trick. Did this a third time, now in constitutional law with the Commerce Power Doctrine, used the traditional Socratic method, supplemented with 3 small writing assignments with feedback, and group reading on what's called Classroom Salon, which is something developed at Carnegie Mellon University where students can read together and annotate and discuss online. And we produced strong learning gains through using those interventions. Produced a third paper in the series that demonstrates an evolution and a development of teaching approaches and methods. I think this whole series of works provides an example of the central process: experimentation with educational interventions, measuring the results, and adjusting the approach based on the results and trying a new experiment, and do this over and over again. And I now want to take this approach to the area of institutional level assessment. The ABA standards, the new standards are out. They now, in my mind, require this, and it really is my new project. The first step, again, in that is to identify student learning outcomes for the school, institution-wide. And we're using, again, this is Zedek and Schultz's work. These are the 26 characteristics of effective lawyers, or skill areas of effective lawyers, and we're building off of that. We'll choose and pick which ones we want in light of the ABA standards, which include almost all of them. And then we're going to form a research team, and we're going to use our center at the University of New Mexico on effective teaching, plus work with Sheldon Zedek and Marge Schultz and the researchers around them to do this on a collaborative basis. We are developing a methodology. We are considering developing pre- and post-test instruments. The Berkeley project is about developing an alternative to the LSAT. They're reluctant to move into assessment like this, but I think we've convinced them, and we're going to develop our own instruments as pre- and post-tests, first year, third year, and see what we're doing institution-wide. We need faculty participation. It's a challenge. Let me tell you, it does take courage to do this kind of work, it seems. And we need to engage where we're at, and then start these experiments. I believe that we have to engage in this type of endeavor if we are going to comply with the spirit of the new ABA standard and not just comply in form, and move beyond blunt, unsophisticated measurement methods such as the bar exam results, MPRE, job placement, and the Lessee survey, which is only survey data. I think it's an exciting endeavor. I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's a foundation for a rigorous process of experimentation, assessment, and adjustment. So thank you.